Hello there, I'm Blunty, and I'm sitting here in a very contrived set, if you will, surrounded by video gaming consoles, because about 4 years ago I made a video. Well, it got split into two videos because at the time YouTube couldn't do more than 10 minutes at a time, and it was about 16 minutes worth of content here or there, so I had to split it. Anyway, the video was about the console war and the stupidity of the console war, the futility, the ridiculousness of people who don't even know each other arguing across the internet based on what video game console they like best, and how they can't stand that someone else has a slightly different opinion about what they think which console is best. You realise how blindingly ridiculous that is, don't you? Getting all wound up and just arguing and going back and forth for hours on end, days on end. Sometimes these arguments go on forums and stuff, just back and forth, back and forth. And people like me who have 3 decades worth of experience with video gaming, who were alive when the Atari 2600 was doing its thing, who sat through all the console wars, the Atari and the Commodore and the Master System and the Super Nintendo, the Mega Drive and the Genesis and the PlayStation 1 and the Xbox One and the GameCube and Nintendo 64, throughout all of it, 30 years of inane arguments, and they're always the same. Always exactly the same arguments, and nobody ever actually wins. When's the last time you saw an argument over consoles where someone else went, you know what? You've got a damn good point there. The 360 does suck. I'm going to sell it and buy a PlayStation 3. It never happens. So what's the point of arguing about it? It's just a waste of your time. You could be doing stuff like, I don't know, playing video games that you enjoy. Or, if you don't want to play at that time, you can go on and talk about the video games you enjoy. Talk about the positive things. Talk about how much fun you had. Talk about which game offers the most fun, instead of just waffling on endlessly about which hardware you prefer. In the second part of that video series I made, the first part I made of what I thought was a fairly calm and concise argument about why all this is ridiculous, and I've just restated much of it there. And the second part of the video was answering the question, which one do I prefer, because people were asking. Because I do videos about video games from time to time, and on the hardware and reviews of the game sometimes, and cover the launches and all that sort of stuff, and people are curious, understandably. Well, which one do you prefer, I wonder? And I think you'll find my choices are exactly the same as they were 4 years ago, in order of preference, this, then this, and simply because the game library on this is more interesting to me at the moment, and I like the controller better. So when there is a choice of a multi-platform game, I will choose it on the Xbox 360 simply because I like the controller better. I think it's more comfortable in my big hands than this. I don't dislike the PlayStation 3 controller, I just like that one slightly better. I'm not saying this has better exclusive. I'm not saying it has more exclusives, so don't just argue about that, because that's another thing people love to argue about. Well, this exclusive library is better on the PC, or exclusive library is better on this. Pointless. Pointless. Absolutely pointless to argue about that stuff with someone else. You're never, ever, ever going to change their mind. It has never happened in the whole history of console war arguments online. No one has ever changed anyone else's mind by yelling at them about how much better the exclusives are on this, or this, or this, or whatever it is. Never happens. It's pointless to do it unless you just enjoy being agitated or enjoy being a cockhead online. Now, all that argument aside about the old arguments and how pointless it is and which one my preference is, I haven't gamed as much this year as I have in previous years, and it's not because I'm getting bored of gaming, I don't think. It's because everything's sort of winding down at the moment. So, the Wii U is about to launch, which will give Nintendo a fresh new home console thing. It's very interesting with the big touchscreen control pad. But I think the main reason that I don't play much these days is because everything feels so stagnant and stale and repetitive. And I said this the other day, who was at THQ sent me a review disc of Darksiders 2. And I was twittering about it. I'm not going to produce a full video review on it because, frankly, I don't want to spend my time playing it. And I've heard plenty of people say it's a great game, it's a fun game, and it's very well put together, and you know it plays well and everything, but it didn't grab me. And it didn't grab me, and I was very clear about this when I was tweeting about it, not because it's a bad game, it's just because it felt so cliche, so samey, so derivative of so much stuff I've played before. And it's because these consoles have lived longer than any other consoles before them, so there's very little new stuff happening. You know, they've pushed the hardware as far as it can go, so there are no new fancy tricks to be had. And the game industry itself is sort of in a rut at the moment, producing sequel after sequel after sequel after sequel after sequel after sequel. And when they're not producing sequels, they're producing games that are very, very similar to other games that have done very well, which is a smart thing to do from a business standpoint, I suppose. But from a gamer standpoint, it's like, I've played this game already. It was called something different, and the graphics looked a bit different, but it definitely feels like a game I've already played to death. I'm not really interested in it. Psst, throw it over my shoulder. But then it comes down to mobile gaming is taking off at the moment, and gaming on, you know, the iPad and Android tablets and the iPhone, smartphones, of course. And that's exploding at the moment. Everyone's seeing it explode, and yay, woo, lots of exciting stuff. Well, no, not lots of exciting stuff, just different stuff is basically what it comes down to. It's not stuff you're playing on these, because, like I just got done saying, this experience is stagnant. These have lived too long. The game companies have said, I think, it was a 7-year plan for this and a 10-year plan for this, but it's gone on too long, and now people are starving for fresh experiences, different experiences they haven't done to death for the last half decade. And that's why mobile gaming is taking off. It's not because mobile gaming is better. It's not because it's a different gaming experience at its core. It's not because of short-form gameplay, really. It's just because people are, I think, starving, desperate for something fresh, new, something they haven't done over and over and over and over again. And that's how I feel. So the faster that Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo can get their new gear on the ground, the happier I'll be, I think. And it sounds like a weird thing to say, because it's never been about the hardware, it's been about the end game. But new hardware pushes new innovation in games, just like the Wii did. Before this came along, gaming was stagnant too. Then this came along and people went nuts for the motion control. It was a way different way to play games, and, you know, I'm not a particularly huge fan of it. But it changed things, it shook things up, it forced these guys to pay attention and do their own motion control thing, because they otherwise they were just sitting in the dirt. But that wasn't enough to save them still. It still felt stagnant, and there were... I can't name a compelling motion controlled gaming experience on either of these that has caught me for more than a couple of days. There's been a few really fun ones, and I don't play a lot of party games and stuff. I prefer to drink and fuck around at parties instead of playing video games, but that's just me. But, I don't know. What do you reckon? This whole console war thing. Are these too old? Please say you agree with me when you say it's pointless arguing between them. And what are your expectations for the Wii U? The new Xbox is probably going to have Kinect built into it. It's a no-brainer. Nobody knows much about what PlayStation are planning next, or when it will come. But frankly, I hope it's soon, because I don't want to be a non-gamer. I don't want to be so bored of gaming I just give it up completely. I want to be enthralled, and I'm hoping when the Wii U comes along, that'll provide enough of a fresh experience to keep me sort of ticking over in the gaming mindset, because it's like a lot of hobbies. If you just don't do it for long enough, you never pick it up again, really. Anyway, thanks for watching. I am Blunty. I'll catch you next time.